first time in 28 years, the Montreal Canadiens are going to the Stanley Cup final, and many of us, including me, and it was all about the eye test. They did not pass the eye test. Not many teams in the North Division passed the eye test, but they're certainly passing it now. Nick Kypreos here for the Real Kyper at Noon show. We got Mac, we got Jordan, we got Joe, and we've got a lot of Montreal Canadian fans happy. Let's bring in Doug Maclean out of PEI to talk about that and so much more going into this Friday. Also, Game 7, Tampa Bay and the Islanders. Man, the NHL must be loving this. TV networks are certainly loving it. Tons of attention here. But let's start with that. The unlikeliest story in the NHL. The bottom seed team in the NHL playoffs, the Montreal Canadiens at 16, the worst record going into these playoffs, are now in a Stanley Cup final. Mac, you watched it like the rest of us throughout North America and the world, and I said it's of the unlikeliest of stories, yet it's reality today.
Yeah, look, we did say that going into the playoffs, and this was a month or more ago, we said, don't ever underestimate the advantage of the underdog at playoff time. When your number one focus is to defend, it can really affect the outcome. And you know what? We've seen it throughout the playoffs where the team that's number one priority is to defend has been, pretty successful. So, yeah, it wasn't expected. Nobody expected Montreal to do anything in the playoffs. We said they would not be an easy out. We said they would be tough to beat. We said that prior to the Leafs game. When it was 3-1, we didn't believe it. But I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
The momentum and confidence they've gained has been amazing to watch.
I'll give you full credit because you left it a lot wider in terms of the thought that Montreal could be a very tough out or Carey Price could show up. I didn't think the lineup had enough, Mac. And when I watch it again and again, and you watch the team really win from the net out, but it's not as if Carey Price is standing on his head while they pepper him at 50 shots a night and you go, he's doing it. The philosophy is from the net on out, but they are relentless on a forecheck, and they do play as close to flawless hockey as you can. There's not too many times that they're out of position. There's no stick in the lanes, or they're giving up odd man rushes. It's remarkable to see the consistency in their game and the frustration since being down 3-1. Mac, this team is 11-2 since trailing the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round. It is remarkable what they've been able to do in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, look, and let's not kid ourselves. It starts with Carey Price and the confidence he exudes, and it translates throughout the organization. Then it goes to the big four on the back end. That how many times did we see the big four go with a simple D-to-D pass that threw off the forecheck and the puck cleared the zone? How many times did we see a rush like we saw on the winning goal last night? Gallagher makes a play. Danault makes a play. Luukkonen scores.
With the game winner.
I mean, it translated from goaltending to the defense. How many times did we see Merrill make a play last night, who wasn't part of the big four, a former Vegas Golden Knight? So, you know what? It just translated. Goaltending, defense were unbelievable. They threw a monkey wrench. The Vegas Golden Knights couldn't get a consistent forecheck because it was D-to-D out of the zone. Chip out of the zone, long pass out of the zone. I mean, it was a frustrating team to play against. And they bought in, we're going to beat these teams when it starts in our net and translates from D to the forward group. And everybody bought into that. How many times did Danault win a face-off?
Yeah.
A clean face-off win, and boom, out of the zone. I mean,
Especially,
so there was a lot of people involved.
especially on the penalty kill.
Oh, amazing.
And Mac, 15 for 15 on the penalty kill. And we know that there's not many power plays, but you have to score a big power play goal at some point in the series. The energy that was lost coming off of power plays for Vegas, I think was the biggest sap of emotion. It was almost like to look at the faces after going 0 for on a power play and sapping energy out of the team. It was almost as if they were waving a white flag. That's how frustrated they were.
You know what? And timeouts wasted because you call it trying to fix it, and then you miss an opportunity to use it later. It was a frustrating, hard on the head series for the team that was by far the favorite. A team that has gone through. I understand Minnesota was a tough round. No tougher than Toronto and Montreal was. Winnipeg, they got a break, but were they fatigued? I think it was pressure. I think it was expectations, and I'm sorry to say this, it was goaltending.
Well,
anyway, go ahead, because I want to dissect this goaltending situation and use an analogy that hasn't been used.
Before we get into Vegas and the issues and what may cost them and what are the ramifications of losing to the Montreal Canadiens, I want to stay on Montreal because certainly it's deserving of the attention that they should get. Mac, in terms of upset, I can't think of one that we got to go back to Vegas 4 years ago as an expansion team making the Stanley Cup final. This isn't quite that because of guys like Shea Weber. But I got to look at this and go, where did this come from? I watched Marc Bergevin last night celebrate like the biggest super fan you've ever seen. And I get it. I get the emotion. I get the passion. I get the pent-up frustration over the last few years. But wow, that was worth the price of admission alone, watching Marc Bergevin celebrate.
Who was the famous dancer with the Winnipeg Jets? They used that's who Bergie reminded me of last night, was that famous dancer. They used to dance underneath the Queen with the old Winnipeg Jets. Remember him?
Oh, my gosh. You got a better memory than me. It might be the red suit, but whatever it is, you certainly got the sense that this has been a very emotional year for Marc Bergevin.
Look, what he's been through, the criticism he's taken has been over the top by a lot of experts, a lot of heat. And then to throw the coaching, firing of Julien, the hiring of Dominique Ducharme, the positive COVID test to Ducharme, and all of a sudden Luke Richardson has to step in. How can you ever imagine all those things transpiring during the course of the season and then dancing like the famous dancer from Winnipeg for 15 minutes after the game and hugging and kissing with the mask on? He's taken kissing and hugging with masks on to a whole new level.
And such a contrast to his now head coach, Luke Richardson, who's calm and cool and collected, like he's been to 10 Stanley Cup finals.
Sitting there and he's looking at his assistant coach saying, like, is Bergie okay here? Is Bergie okay? I was thrilled for him. It was great to see.
The other guy that's got ice in his veins, and even listening to him speak after the post-game comments, is Carey Price, Mac. And we know the roller coaster of get rid of him, you can never win with a $10.5 million goalie. The critics have been out there, you know, and this isn't to embarrass Jeff Merrick, who's a colleague of ours from Sportsnet, but I remember listening to him on a podcast say Carey is a good goalie who used to be a great goalie and who used to be an elite goalie, but isn't anymore. And, you know, we all question Carey Price in that scenario of carrying the Montreal Canadiens and whether or not he could lead them. It's hard. It's difficult for a goalie to do that. They don't score goals. They can just prevent them. But it ultimately has worked for Bergevin. Maybe part of that release last night that we saw on the bench, including shutting people up about Carey Price and his $10.5 million salary.
Well, and we said it before the playoffs. We said, like, Carey Price owes them. He owes them. For the last couple of years, I mean, not that it's Carey Price's fault, but multiple injuries, multiple issues, not being able to play when it was critical times, the team not being very good in front of him. But you know what? Bergevin showed a lot of balls this summer by going out and making multiple changes to this hockey club when he knew his job was on the line. And he made multiple changes to make the playoff a playoff-ready type team. And then he was crucified during the season for, hey, they're no good. They're no damn good. They still can't play. They're too slow. They're too big. They're too slow. They can't play in this new game. Well, the new game was found out that the new game doesn't translate to playoff time. Because Tampa Bay showed it last year. The only way they could win the cup was to play, to defend, and to learn how to play. So good on Bergie. A lot of people up. A lot of people were pretty vicious. And no wonder the release last night was like that.
The new game is the old game, Mac. For me, it's always about building from the net on out. And it's textbook for the Montreal Canadiens right now.
But it's been like that way for how long? I mean, when has it changed? I mean, I don't care about the Shanny Summit where all the hooking and holding come out. It still came back to goaltending, defense, and some game breakers up front. Now, the one element wasn't there in the regular season for the Montreal Canadiens was the game breaking ability. And what goal Caulfield? Goal or Cole Caulfield? Somebody's calling him Goal Caulfield now.
We'll go with Goal.
What about what he brought to this hockey team? He changed the look of their forward groupings. He really did change the look of that forward grouping. Suzuki, Caulfield. All of a sudden, there was a dynamic look that I didn't see for most of the year. Cole Caulfield brought an amazing element to this team. And I love when Danault said to him in the post-game conference, hey, man, you were a huge part of this, when he was giving him a piece of pizza.
4 goals in this series.
And
none finer than the one we saw in Game 6 on the play of McNabb, who's as good of an open ice checker as you'll ever see. But you give this guy just 1 inch, 1 inch of extra space, and he can make you look bad. And the subtle lift of the stick, and then the footwork, and then the finish was all world.
And Nick, we said it, you know, there was questions, what's he going to bring? What's this 5'7" kid? And I had so many people this past winter, and for the last, tell me, this guy is a player. Don't ever.
You had it. You said it right from the start.
Guy is a player, and I'll tell you what, he changed the dynamic of this hockey team. I know it's still Price, and I know it's Weber in the big. I get all that, but this guy brought an element they didn't have, a game-breaking ability. And then you toss in the fourth line. There was so many great elements to this group. It was interesting to watch.
and a little attitude and a strut and a confidence, and not that he called out um, Robin Leonard from his post-game comments about ways to shut him down, but he did send a very good message that I'll figure something else out.
Mhm.
And it's just something that wasn't quite there before he arrived.
Yeah.
And Shea Weber's a big name and a future Hall of Famer, but not a superstar per se with an individual effort that could change the balance of a game. They did not have that prior to Cole Caulfield.
No, they didn't. They did not. And so, I love the structure. You had the Deneau line that became a real solid defensive line with Gallagher playing his tail off. And Luukkonen steps in. He was a fourth liner sometimes this year, steps in. Joel Armia, how well did he play with Perry and Stahl as a real good line? How many times do we see, what about Corey Perry walking into the net late in the game and almost scoring? I mean, and all the elements, really. The Suzuki line with Toffoli looks like a real good line. I mean, I just thought that the way it was structured, and I'm going to tell you something. I left that game last night. I signed Luke Richardson as a free agent in Columbus. He was our captain in Columbus, and this is a special individual, man. I'm telling you, we talked about it before, but the luck of the Montreal Canadiens. Kirk Muller was lost in the transition. The luck to have Luke Richardson there to step in with his calm demeanor, his defensive prowess, to step in and take control of this bench. That was as calm a bench. You got an excitable Burrows. You got Sean Burke, who, by the way, did an amazing job with Carey Price. And a lot of people, we talked about it, but nobody else really has. But I'll tell you what, the luck of Luke Richardson and how good it looks on Luke.
So many twists and turns to this season for the Montreal Canadiens, but to end up where they are today is, like I said, no other word other than remarkable. And now as we watch them take a couple of days off, Mac, you wonder now if they could just play as early as tomorrow or Sunday, because there is no loss of energy. Even if we go back to game 4 that they had lost, they played well.
I know. But the
consistency from 4, 5, and 6 were all there for the Montreal Canadiens. The energy did not slip in the least.
And they need this break. They need it till Monday night because of the Stahls and the Perrys and the Webbers and the Sherratts and the Petries. They need this break, in my opinion. And then, the refocus happens, but rest is going to be real important.
I remember, Mac, as a young 18-year-old, and I get to skate with a lot of these NHLers around Toronto, and I got invited to a pro skate, and I'll never forget the first time I stepped on the ice and started playing shinny with these guys. I went to go lift up Pat Flatley, former captain of the New York Islanders, stick, and it was like steel. It was like you almost heard that ding sound as I tried to lift his stick up. It didn't move.
Yeah.
And I said to myself at that moment, if that's what it's like to play against NHLers, I don't know if I can do it. And as I'm watching last night time and time again, in the last few years, it's been so easy to write off Corey Perry.
Mm-hmm.
I watch his stick around the net, in front of the net, and he's got that Pat Flatley.
Oh, big time. Stick. You want to believe it.
And you can talk all you want on maybe losing a step here and there, but when you're that heavy on your stick, you can make up for a lot. And he is as heavy on his stick today, Corey Perry, as he's ever been in his NHL career. And it's no coincidence that he is going to the Stanley Cup final for the second consecutive year on two different teams. Maybe it's less about the teams and more about Corey Perry.
Can you explain to me how Corey Perry looks faster than Mark Stone?
He's got the puck, Mac.
Unbelievable.
And it's hard to knock him off of it. Yeah.
It's amazing. It is amazing.
And the experience, he's a great balance for a guy like Shea Weber.
Yeah.
And you watch the young players, you watch him on the bench, you watch him looking at a tablet with a Cole Caulfield. Yeah. And good on Marc Bergevin. It took him a while, but he was still smarter than the 30 other teams in the league to eventually sign him. Toronto didn't even blink at him when he asked them if he could sign there. So Bergevin ends up being the smartest of them all in Corey Perry's acquisition.
And Corey Perry set the tone saying, hey, I don't care if I'm on the taxi squad. I'm going to sign and show you guys that I can still play. And, all the hoopla around Thornton and Simmons, and I hate to say it, I didn't like it. I didn't like it, and I said it at the time. I didn't like those signings. But Perry is a winner. And you know what, Hart Trophy, Stanley Cup champion. I mean, he's done it all. And you know what? Full marks to him. And it's not the genius of the GM. That's part of it, but it's Corey Perry that deserves the credit for what he's been able to accomplish at this stage of his career. It's unbelievable. It really is.
Okay. I think we dissected a lot from last night on the Montreal side, but before we get to Tampa Bay and the Islanders and their all-important Game 7, Mac, the ramifications, what the consequences of a Vegas team losing. If we were to look at Vegas and put a list together of why they lost, what would be on the top of the list? I know you mentioned goaltending, but I don't know. I don't. It's not the first place I would look. Where is the first place you would look? Is it between the pipes?
No, it isn't between the pipes. It's between the ears. And I say this. I remember a famous football guy telling me, you have a hard time winning in the NFL with two top quarterbacks. One great quarterback you win with. Two, struggle. You've got two goaltenders here, a Vezina Trophy winner and an unbelievable save percentage with two goaltenders, and it was a cloud for way too long. Your final four games of this series, Fleury, Leonard. Are you kidding me? Kidding me that you have that going on in this round of the playoffs? So you send messages to the opposition. Fleury fumbles the puck behind the net. He's out of the net. Leonard goes in, wins the game in overtime. He's out of the net. You send messages to the opposition that we've got you. We've got you here. You take Pacioretty off the line that got you there. We got you here. You're making changes. You're shuffling the deck. I just thought it was bad. This is an organization that's shown a lot of arrogance in the last 4 years. There was rumblings of tampering this summer. There was a lot of people pissed off. Know that it didn't catch up with them a little bit, but I'm telling you what, win with two great quarterbacks, and I think it bit them in the ass.
Well,
goaltending didn't cost them.
No,
but it was the head. Don't take. You think if Price stumbles behind the net on a goal that caused the winning goal, he's out of the net after the year Fleury had and after the year Price had? Like, come on, Nick. It made no sense.
Well, Yeah, there's no question that, Mac, from the moment that they brought in Leonard, to not even just bringing him in, but last year in the bubble, really from the get-go, taking the net away from Fleury. It's been a topic of discussion, a major topic of discussion. But the biggest one of them all, Mac, isn't necessarily who's better or who should play.
No,
It's $12 million of your salary cap into goaltending, and having a either $5 million or $7 million guy on your bench not playing,
and the head games.
You can't
and
do
the distraction. That. It's a distraction, Nick. It's a distraction to the organization for me, and we've talked about it for a year.
And they love Fleury, and they've shown great support for Leonard. So the emotional split as well in that room.
It's not good, in my opinion. But that's just I'm an outsider. I'm an outsider.
Did the $12 million in your goaltending take away from maybe adding more depth? I look, and I've been a critic of the center ice, and Suzuki has gone from a guy that was still learning to a guy that's capable of leading a team in the number one slot. And Danault has proven to be one of the better two-way centermen that I can ever recall, during a playoff run. And now you compared that to Vegas, and Karlsson, for me, William Karlsson was a no-show. That hurt a lot. When Chandler Stevenson misses 2 games and is still your number one centerman, there's a lot of issues there for Vegas. But coming back to the goaltending, that money could have been better spent, I think, up the middle of the ice.
Listen,
it cost you Stastny. It cost you moving Stastny.
Exactly. And I was concerned about Montreal's inexperience down the middle of the ice. I was concerned about it, and I questioned it. But then I say, now Stevenson, fourth liner with Washington, becomes the number one centerman. Kolesar, Karlsson, a Stanley Cup center ice. Karlsson's had a good run. He's been great there. Stevenson had a good year. That center ice position, and you said it, money-wise, when Stevenson went down, I was floored they didn't put Karlsson with Stone. I was shocked they didn't move. You need Pacioretty and Stone to score. I said it after game 1. If you're going to win this series, you need those two guys going. Why not put your best centerman with them? I know Riley and Marchessault need help, but Stone and Pacioretty scoring. And not to give them the best centerman on the team, I couldn't believe it. And I said it, a week and a half ago. I know he had to break up that line, but they broke up 3 lines because of Stevenson injury.
What was the biggest tell for me was the lack of minutes for Stone and Pacioretty. I think 14, 15 minutes in that vicinity, Mac, and that's a lack of confidence from your head coach. That's basically it. And you won't find a more accountable guy than Mark Stone to listen to his comments. And
I feel for him.
You feel for him. You do feel for him, but it's the burden of being the captain, being the go-to guy, and the burden, much like Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner.
Yeah, you pay the price. You get the big money.
You get the big money. You got to deliver when it matters the most, and he could not do that, and that's a tough pill to swallow. But he did. And where does Vegas go from here? Does this cost anybody anything?
I just like a coach. How much influence does a coach have at this time of year? And this is what I'll tell you where they influence what can happen. First of all, they had that the mental shape of your team is one thing. They have influence over the power play. They have influence over matchups, and they have influence over goaltending decisions. Okay?
Yeah.
How did it sort out?
Yeah.
Not good.
No, not good. Not good.
No. As the four areas that you've got to make sure your team is ready to play. So, you know what? Peter DeBoer is a good coach. Peter DeBoer is a good coach. He's had good success in the NHL. I like Peter DeBoer.
Yeah.
But this team was dominated. I'm sorry, but Nick, in the last 3 or 4 games, this team was dominated.
Yeah,
a lot of time.
I watched it. We all watched it.
To watch domination by the 16th seed.
They could not sustain anything throughout this series. I don't ever recall, like I did against Minnesota or Colorado, watching back-to-back shifts where you go, wow, it's like a tsunami coming at you. And they had those moments against Colorado and Minnesota where you're like,
and they were better. In fairness to the coaching staff, they were better last night. But I never got the feeling. I never got the feeling they were going to win. I just didn't get the feeling. I thought Montreal would win last night. I hedged on it a little bit, but I did pick Montreal to win last night. But I was hedging on it, you know. But I'm sorry. So look, some decision and the arrogance of the organization. I get the excitement around. We went to the Stanley Cup Finals in our 3rd year in Florida. Nobody in our organization, from when Brian Murray and Bobby Clark and company, Bill Torrey started, nobody talked about winning the Stanley Cup in 3 years and 4 years and 5 years. It never was brought up. But the arrogance of, okay, we're going to make the playoffs in this year. We're going to win the Stanley Cup in this year. We're going to think, are you kidding? Are you kidding? Talking like that?
God, this Canadiens team must just bring back so many memories of the underdog and how you win from the net on out from your run in 96. There has to be so many similarities because you did not have a superstar. You didn't have a Malkin or a Crosby. Montreal doesn't either.
No, but what we had was John Van Beesbroek. We had a big, strong, big four on the back end who defended, and we had a belief, a confidence that, and each. I mean, the opening round against the Bruins, it started. Second round against the Legion of Doom in Philadelphia went to another level. And then to go against Yager and Lemieux, it went even to another level. Obviously the finals, we weren't very good against Colorado. We just didn't have it. But I'll tell you what, the belief in Montreal Canadiens, man, they had the belief. And it was very, very interesting. We don't cheer for one team or another, but it was something to watch. It really was.
Just not to get too ahead of ourselves, but it's so fucked up. That's what it basically is at this point when it comes to trying to assess what you either seen in the past or what you want to believe moving forward. But at this point, you're guessing at the very best. And even with all our experience of watching and the optics of what we have, plus the experience says this plus this should equal this, but it just seems like everything's out the window. I almost think now that we believe that the Stanley Cup final will start Monday. And I would almost believe now that based on what I've been able to watch in the first 3 rounds out of Montreal, the matchup might be better for Montreal against Tampa than it is the Islanders.
Yeah.
They may have a better shot of beating Tampa Bay based on how they beat Vegas than Barry Trotz's ability to play defense almost as well at
Yeah.
times. And
Yeah.
we've seen Islanders break down
Yeah.
once.
Well, here's what would scare me if I'm Tampa Bay tonight. Okay. Here's what would scare me. Number one, Point going to score in every game. Is that eventually? So I'd be a little nervous. Like, is Braden Point really going to score every night for me? And what if he doesn't? The second thing I'd be afraid of, the Islanders better not get the lead tonight. They better not get the lead.
Mac, I've said this all along. Up 2-0, down 2-0, and of course, Game 6, halfway through the game, down 2-0. They look the same. They play the same. They come at you the same.
And I don't disagree with you on the matchup, which might be better for Montreal. I mean, they have taken star power and pushed it. Montreal have taken star power and pushed it aside.
I mean,
pushed it aside.
Well, a Tampa Bay matchup would have one of the best power plays in history against one of the best penalty kill in history.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about that matchup for a second. And at the end of the day, it's still a little easier to defend than it is to put a puck in the net.
Yeah. So this is going to be interesting. You know, Barzal looks like he's taking his game to another level. I mean, he's making plays. Like Tampa, Kucherov's health, we're not sure where that is. You mentioned to me that he looks like he'll play. I don't know if you've got, you know.
Okay, let's get into this for a little bit, because you know, I had tweeted that, you know, at the time I'm watching it, and it's not said but per se by the NHL, but a big factor in whether or not a guy gets suspended or not is how much another guy is hurt.
Right.
And you watch the cross check, and I said it, we see that cross check 20 times, 30 times a game, Mac. It is a nothing play.
In playoffs, we do.
In playoffs.
Yeah.
But 20 or 30 times, a guy continues to play who got cross-checked.
Yeah.
But in this instance, we know that he played a little bit, and he was probably in a position of trying it. But there was some damage done to his ribs. There has to be. It's the only logical explanation for him leaving the game. And once you think about a cross-check putting out the top scorer in the playoffs out, and he was unsuspecting, and it was a dirty little shot that really didn't matter until he disappeared, and then that changes everything. What were your thoughts?
100%.
What were your thoughts of the cross-check? And more importantly, put yourself in the role of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Mac. How pissed off would you have been at the officials or the league for Mayfield getting a freebie on a Kucherov?
When you saw him going down the aisle to the dressing room, you're going to lose it. I understand it's something we see all the time, but it's a premier superstar player on your team, the leading scorer in the playoffs, with a cross check directly in front of the referee, who was ripped as early as 2 nights earlier for a mugging of Suzuki and a non-call. I was blown away there was no call on it. And I know we've seen it, and I get all that. I just can't understand the mindset of the referee there with what he had been through against a premier guy. And I know it happens more, and I know that's maybe an unfair comment about the referee, and you're right. Once you saw him leaving the game, it changed the whole complexion of that cross check. That is an illegal play.
Would you, if you were the general manager, Julien Brisebois is in Tampa Bay, but if you were there and you knew Kucherov could not play Game 7, would you not want Mayfield not to play Game 7 too? Would that not be at the top of your priority?
Do you know what a blow that would be to the New York Islanders to lose Mayfield? They're playing. I mean, the kid Dobson has been a great power play guy, and he's had a great year, and he's a kid. And Andy Green is a grizzled veteran, and Letty, but to lose a top 4 guy with nobody to come in and fill in, kid to fill in minutes, that would be a real blow to the New York Islanders.
But my question to you is, would you not be campaigning for that?
100% I would be.
So why, if Kucherov is in a position to not play tonight, why wouldn't you be pushing hard for that? Why wouldn't you, set the tone on that?
That campaign has to start the minute he went to the dressing room with an injury. Diagnosis of the injury, severity of the injury. That campaign has to start right then. And campaigning about what happened here. And George Peros, what are you and your group going to do about it? The campaign has to start then, not today at the morning skate.
So not only do you not get a power play from that, you've lost him for potentially 2 games. Game 6 when it was on the line, and Game 7.
100%.
So I don't listen. If they don't want to suspend Mayfield, which they can't now, right?
No, how can they now? But do you agree with me? The campaign had to start the minute he went down the aisle.
I'm shocked
to the dressing room.
I'm shocked that there was no thought of that whatsoever, Mac.
That and was there? I don't know if there wasn't.
So
I mean, how could there not have been?
I'm just trying to connect the dots here, and if there was never a push on Mayfield shouldn't be allowed to play if my guy can't play Game 6 or finish Game 6 or can't play Game 7, if there isn't any of that, does that not lend to Kucherov playing?
That's what you would be believing, that obviously if there hasn't been the campaign, he is probably going to play. But I don't know. And this is a slippery slope to go down when a guy gets injured and a guy gets suspended. We've listened to this slippery slope for how long, Nick?
Yeah.
And we know the injury comes into a major play in the Peros decisions. We know that. Except in the Panarin-Wilson situation, because Panarin hurt his knee. It didn't come into play there.
You know, if you feel for a guy like Mark Stone on that loss, there's a human side of you that's got to feel for the official Chris Lee, who just left a controversial situation in Montreal, and now he's right into the frying pan with this play. It's like you feel for him, and I don't know if he's just if he's emotionally paralyzed right now, Mac, from making calls that should be easier.
And Chris is a good guy, but let me just give you what he's in. I had a problem here last week at our place with our septic tank. Okay. And when the septic tank was being cleaned out, I was there. Chris Lee's in shit right now. And I feel sorry for him.
Oh, gosh. He is knee deep. But
and I feel for him because he's a good guy. And I don't like I hate to see that, but you're the best in the world. You're on the ice in the playoffs. That means you had a great season with this stringent evaluation these referees go through. And you know what? They make mistakes, and it's unfortunate. But 2 in a row, I feel for him. I really do. And it's the best player. It's the best player. It was Suzuki, one of Montreal's best players, a game breaker. It was Kucherov, Tampa's best player, leading scorer in the playoffs, game breaker. 2 times, 2 top players.
Just make the call. That's all you got to do is just
I
make the
feel for him.
obvious calls. What do you like, Mac? You buy into the theory that as good as Braden Point is, it's only a matter of time before he doesn't score. And
how can he?
how would you like to score 8 consecutive games and not score in the most important one so far in Game 7?
Hasn't it been 9, or is it 8?
No, I'm sorry. You're right. 9.
9
Yes,
consecutive.
9. He's one off Reggie Leach.
Yeah. So, like, really,
I've lost track. That's how many goals he's scored.
And he's such a guy. He's such a gamer, and he's such a winner, and he's such a, just such a great story. But I would be a little nervous about that. And you know what? I got a funny feeling that this is going to be an amazing war tonight. I do. I think it is going to be. I know Tampa's the favorite. I'd be nervous. I see a little deer in the headlights going on in Tampa. I hope I'm wrong.
On the road, might set them up pretty well, the Islanders.
But that power play, that Tampa, how do you go against Vasilevsky and the Tampa power play? How do you go against that?
But it's a different power play if Kucherov isn't healthy or isn't there.
100%. So the question is the health of Kucherov. The Kucherov controversy continues. The $12 million salary cap controversy continues. But you're right. It's hard to go against Vasilevsky and that power play. The discipline that the Islanders have played with for the most part has got to continue tonight. And they've got to hope it's called like a playoff game where it's called a little bit loose by the officials.
Regardless of what happens tonight, the Montreal Canadiens will be scheduled to either play Game 1 Monday night in New York or Tampa Bay. But I can't think of a better place for the Montreal Canadiens to start than on the road with that game.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of, we always love these playoffs when an underdog gets to this level. The Islanders aren't an underdog. They've been a good franchise for a long time since Lou took over and, it made the changes and Trotz went in. They've been a good franchise. The emergence of Barzal, the emergence of, Pelech and Polak. And, there's been some great stories there. So they're not underdogs. Tampa Bay are the favorites still. Montreal are the underdogs, and it's a great position to be in as long as you can win. It's not great if you're the underdog and you lose, by the way. I've lived that too.
It's going to be fun to watch tonight. Anything else, Mac, out there? What are you hearing around the league? One name that I heard the last little while is Nugent Hopkins, and I think a while ago you thought it was a foregone conclusion that they'd find a way to get him signed, but the sense is, Mac, he's not going to be an Edmonton Oiler next year, and whether or not he was looking at $5.5 or $6 million next year, the feeling is that maybe the Oilers are better off with 2 $3 million players than they are one Nugent Hopkins. Does that surprise you at all?
Well, you know what? It's a loss. He's a really valuable two-way guy who can play with stars. First overall pick, but he's become a guy that can play with stars and is a really good, solid top 6 guy. I don't disagree with the $2-3 million guys. They need depth. It's been proven for year after year after year that they need depth up front. It's a 2-man show with the emergence of a couple other guys, but they need more depth up front if they're going to play this time of year, and they don't have it. The players that play on their bottom 6, and even at times in their bottom 9, are not Stanley Cup players. So it's a big decision. And then they need help on the blue line. I mean, I know Klefbom coming back will be a plus. Hopefully he's going to be okay. And there's still a goaltending question there. There's lots to digest with the Edmonton Oilers. There really is. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed since last summer. The only thing that's changed is that Smith gave them a hell of a year.
Mac, one of the teams that Dougie Hamilton and his camp have talked to are the Edmonton Oilers. Does that make sense? That would give Connor a completely new look to his run with the Edmonton Oilers. Dougie Hamilton there.
Well, Hamilton with Nurse, with the way he's emerged, with Klefbom, if he can come back healthy, with Larson, all of a sudden, Bear character. You know what? It would change the look big time. Big time. It would change the look, and it would crush the Calgary Flames down the highway. That's an interesting one. What the hell is going on in Calgary? It is way too quiet for me. Decisions seem to be really slow being made. We touched on that the other day. What is going on with the Calgary Flames?
Just ultimately, when you think about who's in charge, that in itself is a question, isn't it?
No, there's one person in charge, and only one person in charge.
Who's that?
The owner.
All right. And where's Daryl? Is he just the head coach, or is he a very influential head coach?
I think he's a very influential head coach, but I think until things get sorted out from ownership down, there's a void there. I think there's a real disconnect all the way through there. I really believe that. I'm hearing rumblings of that there is a disconnect, that Daryl doesn't even really know what's going on. So something's got to change there real fast.
Well, we're not short of storylines in the offseason, but I think it's going to be after the Stanley Cup. It doesn't seem like any team's really interested in taking away maybe the attention of a Stanley Cup final pending. But
we probably don't need 3 shows a week, though, do we?
Mac, you're so in demand. I think people want 5.
You know what? I'll tell you how much in demand I am. I've got 11-year-olds asking me to do podcasts.
How was Jake? Maybe
Jake
we can throw everybody over to Jake. Jake,
as I said to Jake, I said, you're a better host than Kypreos, and it's not even close between you and Maclean on CBC or whatever he's on. He's Sportsnet. It's not even close.
We'll look for that. Of course, the
demand, and now Ricky Vive phoned me. I'm going to go on his podcast, and I've got another one. I'm going on a WWE. I mean, it's getting sickening. I'm retired. Like, seriously.
Wait a second. Why are you going on a WWE podcast?
I don't know. Somebody phoned me and asked me if I'd go on one. I don't know what the hell they want to talk about.
Maybe
this is the wrestling
as a manager.
This is a wrestler.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell.
Could you imagine Doug as like the old school 70s wrestling manager, maybe carrying a tennis racket a la James
100%. You would be the ultimate character on wrestling.
I would be the ultimate character as long as I was on the outside of the ring and not on the inside of the ring. I'd be mouthing off on the outside of the ring.
All right, we'll listen for you on Jake's takes, and make sure that you can find Mac. Go to Twitter and ultimately get the instructions on Jake's Takes podcast, because I am sure it's as entertaining as anything we've ever done here.
Oh my God! Anyway,
I will be traveling next week, Mac. Going to do not quite the RV thing, but I'm going to be out and about next week. But we're going to find ways to get together, get some product out there, and in the meantime, take over for me a little bit, okay?
Well, you know what? It's something that I've had to do to keep this thing afloat. So I will continue. I will continue.
All right, Mac. Enjoy Game 7.
If I can do the goddamn show on the side of a mountain, you can do it. You can do it from wherever you are.
Jordan, did you hear that?
I heard it and I completely agree. I'm Team Mac on this one.
Am I gonna have to get like rabbit ears? Am I gonna get? Do I have to get my wife Anne Marie to hold up rabbit ears like you had Jill at the top of the
I
mountain?
want Anne Marie to walk in and say, cut the shit. Let's shut her down. We got things more important to do than this podcast, like Jill does.
Like what? Hit a Target, a Walmart.
Exactly.
All right,
Yep.
Mac. Enjoy it tonight, and we'll find a way to connect next week. We'll promise you all of that as we gear towards the Stanley Cup final. We know Montreal's in it. We'll see. We'll find out tonight if it's New York or Tampa Bay bound. All right, Mac. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, bud.
All right, Joe and Jordan. Thanks as always. Good week. It'll even get better and more interesting as we gear up towards the Stanley Cup final. I'm Nick Kypreos for Real Kyper at noon. Make sure you're watching, subscribing, leave the comments, and hit that like button for Doug Maclean. We'll see you during the Stanley Cup final.